Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. A long time no see, I know. So before we get into the topic of this video, I wanted to first quickly catch up with you guys, only because I haven't been on here in a while, and so it just feels weird to like get back on camera and just immediately start making content again without, catching up first. It's like when you don't see a friend for a long time, the first thing you do is, ask, where have you been? What have you been doing? Like catch up first before you just kind of dive back into things. So that's what we're gonna do. I just want to quickly catch up with you guys. It'll be very, very brief. I promise you it won't be like a long drawn out intro. So basically, the last time you guys saw me on this channel, I was announcing the launch of Patreon, and I really appreciate all of you who have subscribed to my Patreon, and I feel like that's been going fairly well, but I definitely can see how having to make content for Patreon and also making content for YouTube, how that can be a bit overwhelming, because coming up with content ideas in itself is not easy, and then like trying to figure out if I should put the content on YouTube or put it on Patreon is also not easy. So yeah, I pretty much have come up with a solution that I think will work out. Basically, I'm going to be combining my YouTube videos with my Patreon content as well. So pretty much what I'll do is I will make my regular content like I always make on here, and then on Patreon I'll put an extended video that stems from the video on YouTube, if that makes sense. So for example, in this video, we're going to be talking about narcissistic abuse and how it has impacted my life and how it has changed my life. And then on Patreon, I'm going to do a more in-depth video about this exact subject. So it's basically like I'm creating content for both platforms, but it's the same type of content, so it'll be a bit easier. And so then I'll be able to be a bit more consistent. And this will definitely work out in the favor of anyone who wants more in-depth information. Like let's say you watch a video on here on my YouTube channel and you want more info, like you feel like you really connect with the video, you feel like you really resonate with it, and you want more in-depth info, then you could subscribe to my Patreon, and over there I will be, uploading more in-depth information, and also I'll be getting more like personal. I can tell more personal anecdotes over there because it just feels more, intimate. Pretty much, it feels more like a safe space. Because on YouTube, anyone can watch your videos. On Patreon, it feels more like a tight-knit community, so I'll be able to get more personal on there and just go, more in depth. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through all my old videos, and I'm actually going to upload Patreon content for all my old videos, starting with my attachment style videos. So basically, for those of you who really resonated with the attachment style videos and you want more information about it, within the upcoming few weeks, you can go to my old attachment style videos, and in the description box, I will link a Patreon post that goes along with that video. So I'm looking forward to doing that too, because it just gives me an excuse to watch all my old videos, or just to look through my old videos, which I'm excited about, and just watch my old videos and then just do more in-depth information and put it on Patreon for the corresponding videos. So yeah, I think that that'll be a good way for me to be more consistent on here and on Patreon. It'll just be like this YouTube channel but extended over on Patreon. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So let's go ahead and dive into the topic of the video. Now that we're caught up, now that we know what's going on with Patreon moving forward, let's go ahead and dive into the video. So how narcissistic abuse has impacted my life. This is a topic that I have been pondering a lot, because I have definitely realized that I am a completely different person after the narcissistic discard that I experienced in 2016. And for those of you who don't know about that discard, or about that story in general, I have a video about it that you can go watch. Basically in 2016, and I'll link the video in the description box, but basically in 2016, I met a narcissist, and I was very, very vulnerable and very open to him. I opened up my whole heart to him, and yeah, he pretty much discarded me very, very brutally, and it completely changed who I am as a person. It kind of like rewired my brain in a way that's not positive. It really impacted me very negatively, and I feel like people who watch me on YouTube or watch me online, they see that I am, I guess, overcoming that trauma, or they see that I am healing in the right direction, which I would agree with for sure, but no one really sees like behind the scenes, and no one's in my mind, so no one's gonna really know who I was before that narcissistic discard and who I became after that, and they'll never really see the full extent of how it actually impacted me and changed me for the worse. And I feel like I'm doing fairly well. I feel like I am overcoming that situation or that trauma. I feel like I'm adjusting as best as I know how. I feel like I could be doing much worse, and I could have ended up in much worse situations. And I am proud of myself for the ways in which I've been able to take that situation and turn it into something positive by creating my platform. But again, you'll see in this video, you know, as I run down this list of things in my notes, you'll see the ways in which it has definitely impacted me negatively. And sometimes it's very difficult to think about it, and sometimes it's very difficult to deal with. And I'm hoping that this video gives someone else some sort of like comfort in knowing that they're not alone, because a lot of people who haven't been discarded by narcissists, they think that it's something that's like minor, or they think that it's just a breakup, like, oh, he discarded you, he ghosted you, whatever, just move on. But no, it's not minor. It's actually very traumatizing. And if you already have a history of being abused, or if you already have a history of living in dysfunction, that narcissistic discard can be the thing that can really push you over the edge. And I feel like that's what happened to me, is that it pushed me over the edge. It completely rewired my brain in a negative way, and I started showing up in the world as a very, very dysfunctional person that I did not show up in the world as before. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm going to, you know, try my best to to just work up the courage to talk about this thoroughly, because I do carry a bit of shame from some of the things that I'm going to list in this video. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into my list. Basically, you're going to hear me reference a relationship that I had back in 2017. You're going to hear me reference this relationship a lot, only because that relationship is where I really started to see the damage that was done to me by this narcissist. Because after the discard, I feel like, yes, I was very depressed, and I felt very anxious, and I did feel off balance, but the symptoms of the amount of damage that had been done really didn't show up until I became attached to someone new. And I feel like that's something that, you know, it makes sense. Like, when you're alone, there's only so much dysfunction that's going to come out of you when you're by yourself. But when you get into that new relationship after the narcissist, or after the narcissistic discard, you're going to really see the amount of damage that has been done to you. And I was in a long-term relationship before I met that narcissist, like back in 2014. Between 2010 and 2014, I was in a long-term relationship. I was engaged, actually, and that relationship was quite toxic, but I still did not show up as dysfunctionally as I did after this narcissist. So I'm thankful that I even had that relationship back in 2010 up until 2014, because that gives me a good reference, so I can compare who I used to be versus who I became after that discard. Because sometimes you forget, like sometimes you really think to yourself, is this who I've always been, or has this been like the way that I've always operated? But no, when I think back to that past relationship, I'm like, no, that relationship was highly toxic. It was highly just not a good relationship. It was a roller coaster. It was very up and down, but I still did not show up in ways that were as dysfunctional as I showed up in this 2017 relationship after the narcissist. So I'm going to be referencing this 2017 relationship a lot, because again, this is where the majority of my symptoms showed up. So let's get into it. Let's get into how narcissistic abuse and the narcissistic discard changed who I was as a person. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. I don't want to forget anything. So point number 1. Fear of abandonment. Now, I feel like I have always been a very sensitive person, right? I've always been a very sensitive soul, and so obviously, you know, someone leaving me or rejecting me obviously is going to be painful for me, but I never had a intense fear of it happening. Before 2016, I can say that I had an easy time attaching to people. Like I never had like this difficult time where I was always afraid of the abandonment or the rejection, so I was pushing people away. I never experienced that. If anything, I can say that maybe I attached to people a little too easily. But I remember before 2016, and I'm gonna keep saying before 2016 because the narcissistic discard took place in 2016. Before 2016, I can remember actually being a bit judgmental towards people who were like afraid of love, which obviously I didn't know any better. Now being on the other side of it, I understand completely. But I remember like before 2016, I was always just like, how could you be afraid of love? Like love is so beautiful. Like connecting with somebody is so beautiful. Attaching to someone is so beautiful. And I just always thought it was just this like this great thing that people just do, like people just attach, and I couldn't understand why anybody would be afraid of it until this discard. And now I understand why people would be afraid of it, because now I have this intense fear of abandonment that really prevents me from being able to connect with people fully. And I think that this may be the worst part of narcissistic abuse or the narcissist discard, is this fear of abandonment that ensues, because it's like the inability to connect with people. It's very painful to not be able to connect with people in the way that you once did. I'm the type of person that I always felt like being in love was like the best part of life, and just loving people in general, not just being in love romantically, but being able to love and give love and receive love, to me was like the most beautiful part of life. And it's very, very unfortunate that now I don't get to experience the depth of that the way that I used to be able to. And I honestly do miss it. I miss being able to connect with people on that deep of a level. I feel like I can still connect with people to an extent, but not as deep or as in depth as I once was able to. It's showing up as like a form of PTSD almost, where something traumatic happens, and then whenever you are in a situation where it feels similar to that traumatic event, you start to get extremely triggered and your body goes into like fight or flight mode. That's what happens to me whenever I am about to connect with someone. It's like it reminds me, it sets off alarms in my head of the love bombing that I went through from the narcissist and then the discard. And so my brain now associates attachment with basically abandonment and that extremely painful experience of being discarded, and so it's trying to avoid that at all costs. So my mind and my brain pretty much keeps me away from being able to connect with people. Even if I try to push past it, my brain says no and won't allow it to go there. And that makes sense, because this narcissistic discard was the most painful thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that. If you go and watch the video, you'll know that when I got discarded, I became like suicidal almost immediately. It was like something in my brain like snapped or like broke. And I'm not sure if it's because of, you know, my already sensitive, what would it be, like my body, my mind, my heart. I was already a sensitive person. So I don't know if it's because I was already a sensitive person and that discard just like hurt me to my core and made me kind of like snap, or if it's because there are certain mental disorders in my family that I may have a genetic predisposition to, and maybe that discard was the traumatic event that kind of flipped on the switch. I really don't know. I just know that that discard did something to my brain. It switched my brain completely, and it turned on this extreme fear of abandonment. And not only just the fear of it, but the extreme pain that I feel whenever someone actually does abandon me. It's something that I've never experienced before, like that burning sensation in my nervous system and in my body. I've never experienced that before this discard. So number 2, emotional instability. Now, this is one that I feel I'm still working through the shame behind it. And again, I never experienced this until this relationship in 2017, where the damage of the narcissist really became apparent. Basically, in this relationship in 2017, I started dating a friend of mine. We were friends and we had an attraction for each other, and we decided to take things to the next level and try to date. Now, mind you, I didn't know that the amount of damage had been done to me through this narcissist. I know that he had hurt me severely, but I didn't know the extent of it until I got into this new relationship. So this relationship is one where I showed up extremely emotionally unstable. Like as soon as we got together and I felt attached to him, I remember my brain just going berserk and like wanting to pull away from him. So it was basically showing up as me pushing him away in a very unstable way and then pulling him back in. So there was like, I don't want to be with you. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I do. And it didn't show up until I felt fully attached to him. It's like my brain just went into like a frenzy. And I'm sure he was alarmed because this side of me was not showing up when we were just friends. And so I'm sure he was alarmed by this. And it got to the point where he started feeling very anxious. Like he was saying that, I don't know like which version of you was going to show up. Like one day it's like, I can open your message and it's, I love you. The next day I open your message and it's like, I don't want to be with you. And it was very, very up and down. And then he ended up actually doing something that wasn't cool at all. It wasn't anything like, I don't want to even get into it because this video is going to be too long, but he ended up doing something that I took as, well, I didn't take it as betrayal. It was betrayal. It was betrayal. And that completely caused me to become unhinged even more than I already was. And so, yeah, it's very hard to explain without going into details about the relationship, but just know that I was highly emotionally unstable, highly volatile, lashing out, verbally lashing out, and I just had no control of my emotions whatsoever. And he was the type of person that he's very conflict avoidant, so he's gonna pull back if that's going on. Like if I am exhibiting any type of emotional instability. Actually, okay, let me rewind that. He was conflict avoidant to the point where emotions in general made him uncomfortable. So you can imagine like me being hypersensitive or overly emotional, what that did to him. He really went into like his shell, which caused me to become more unstable. It reminded me of, you know, the narcissist that withdrew from me. So I was being triggered in that way. So yeah, I just showed up as very emotionally unstable. I still feel a lot of shame because of it. Because I just know that before that narcissist, I wasn't that way. And then suddenly I show up as this person who has no control over their emotions whatsoever. And I feel like he'll always in his mind see me as that, because eventually the relationship did end. And I feel like in his mind, he'll always see me as that. And I still have a hard time forgiving myself for that. And I still have a hard time like just moving forward from that. It's like when somebody from your past has this image of you and they were someone who's important of you, and because of your mental health and your mental instability, they have a negative image of you. It's kind of hard to live with that. And it's hard to especially live with it when you are now in the right state of mind and you try to go back and like apologize for it, and they want nothing to do with you. They don't want to hear it. They remember all the things that you said to them. They remember the ways that you were acting out. And you have to respect that. Like, you have to respect the fact that they don't want anything to do with you, and you have to like kind of understand why. But it sits with you, it weighs on you, because it's like I wasn't in the right state of mind, but they don't really care. Like, and they have the right not to care. They just want to move on with their lives. And that's something that still weighs on me. So emotional instability for sure. And also what kind of hurts or kind of makes me feel ashamed is that he did discuss this emotional instability with someone. He discussed it with someone else. And unfortunately, the person he discussed it with was someone who didn't like me or had like a problem with me. And so that person kind of took the information and like ran with it. And so of course that caused me a lot of shame, because at the time I wasn't even aware that my behavior was abnormal. I was literally just living in my emotions and just reacting the way that my body was telling me to react. When you are in that state of imbalance, you don't really understand or know that you're acting weird, or like you're acting abnormal. I shouldn't call it weird, because that sounds judgmental, but you don't really know that you're acting abnormal. You don't know that you're hurting the person. You don't know that you lashing out is an over-the-top reaction. You don't really know until your emotions are balanced. And after your emotions balance out and you realize what you've done, they kind of don't want anything to do with you. And other people, if they have witnessed it, they could be laughing at you, which is what that other person was doing, kind of laughing at my emotional instability. So it's just a lot of shame that's associated with it. And yeah, that's something I'm still dealing with. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I'm going to go more in depth on Patreon about each of these subjects. So that's why I'm kind of keeping them short in this video, because this video would go on for way too long. So number 3, hypersensitivity. And I feel like that goes along with the emotional instability. Just being hypersensitive to any type of criticism, or being hypersensitive to any to any idea or any inkling that the person is going to abandon me or reject me, like I become very, very hypersensitive. And this only happens with people who I'm attached to. It doesn't happen with like strangers. It's like people I'm attached to, if they say anything, I could easily misinterpret it as criticism. If they are kind of pulling back a little bit, even if they're not doing it on purpose, like maybe they're just having a bad day and they're like, their energy is kind of different. I just feel this overwhelming panic. And again, I did not experience this before the narcissist. I really didn't. Like, yes, I'm a sensitive person, but never to this extent, to the point where someone says something or someone I'm attached to says something or does something and I take it as a direct hit and I start lashing out and then I have to go back and apologize for it. It doesn't feel good. Especially when you're back in your right state of mind and you realize what you're doing, it doesn't feel good. And again, I've never had this problem to this extent before the narcissistic discard, so that's something that I'm still dealing with in terms of like being kind of like ashamed of it. I've definitely gotten better for sure after working with my therapist. I've gotten better at it, at not like, you know, taking all of this, taking the words that people say as a direct attack. I've gotten better at not lashing out and things like that, but it's still, I still do carry some shame at the ways in which, you know, I have responded in the past. And also I feel like this has caused me to isolate a bit more, because when you are more hypersensitive, you just don't want to be amongst people or around people as much. And so I feel like this has definitely caused me to go into isolation more, which again, you know, it sucks. I feel like I am somewhat of a loner, but at the same time, I still want the option of being able to surround myself with people that I care about. And sometimes I feel like now that option is kind of been taken away from me because of the hypersensitivity. And I hate the thought that anybody around me would have to walk on eggshells or anything like that because of my hypersensitivity. So I am getting better though. So that's, you know, that's a good thing. Number 4, retroactive jealousy. Now, this one is another one that I feel like I hold some shame about. And I really can't wait to do the Patreon in-depth post on this, because I feel like this is something that a lot of people are completely unaware of. And I think that it's going to be an interesting post. But retroactive jealousy is basically a form of OCD where you become extremely fixated on your partner's past lovers or your partner's past love life. And that might sound really strange to some of you. You probably never have heard of this, but this is an actual thing. It is a form of OCD. It's something that is obsessive and it is compulsive. The way that it showed up for me is that I was very paranoid about my partner's ex. I was paranoid about her coming back into the picture and taking him away, which, again, I never had this problem before the narcissist. And it makes sense that I developed this problem because the narcissist, when he discarded me, if you watch the video, he discarded me because, or he discarded me and it involved his ex. It involved him still having sex with his ex, which completely blindsided me because he, you know, he claimed to have had a problem with his ex and she treated him so badly. And so at the time, I mean, obviously now thinking back on it, I'm like, duh, people do that. People, especially narcissistic people, they'll lie about their exes being bad people. But at the time, I didn't know that. And I didn't know about narcissist or anything like that. So I just felt bad for him. And I felt bad for the fact that his ex had treated him so badly. And I had an ex who had treated me badly. So I could relate to him in that way. And so when he revealed that he was still sleeping with his ex and then he discarded me in that brutal way, that completely caught me off guard, and it completely like scrambled my brain, I guess you could say, and I developed an extreme fear of that happening again. So it makes sense that it would show up as retroactive jealousy, OCD, where I was obsessively worried about my new partner leaving for his ex. And it didn't help that his ex was trying to still be in the picture. Like, she was still lingering around, she was trying to get back in contact with him, and so I pretty much lost it and was extremely fixated on her. And she's the type of person, I don't want to get into this, she's the type of person that she gets a kick out of stuff like that. Like, she enjoyed being like, oh, my ex's woman is so obsessed with me, she's so scared that I'm gonna come back in the picture. She's one of those type of, y'all know the type. So she got a kick out of it. She thought it was funny. She would post pictures of him and tag him as her man crush Monday to like antagonize me, because she knew that I was like really afraid of what, you know, what they could rekindle. So she would say stuff like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and post this so that this crazy girl can react. Like she would actually tweet stuff like that, and he would tell me like, hey, just stop watching, stop worrying about her, don't worry, like just ignore her. And I couldn't ignore her because of this retroactive jealousy and this retroactive jealousy OCD, which I didn't know that I had until later on, you know, working with my therapist. But he didn't understand why I couldn't just ignore it. It was like I said, it was like obsessive, it was like a fixation, and it was like a very deep fear that he was going to up and leave, even though he kept assuring me that it was not going to happen, that he did not want her. But yeah, her antagonizing the situation definitely didn't help. And then something else ended up happening with the situation that definitely didn't help either. But again, I'm not going to get too much into it because we're going to be here all day with this video. So I'm going to do a Patreon post on retroactive jealousy. It may not be up immediately. Like I said, I'm going to do it over the course of a couple of days, like over the course of the next 7 days. But you know, the link will be down there whenever I do upload it to Patreon. So I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, if you've ever experienced that type of fixation on your new partner's ex. If it's like an extreme fixation, not just like a little intimidation, but if it's extreme to the point where you're compulsively bringing it up and you're afraid, then you may want to look into retroactive jealousy OCD, because I did develop it after I was discarded by this narcissist. Okay, so number 5, and sorry if you see the camera angle slightly change. My camera just died, so that's why. But number 5, like I was saying, feelings of worthlessness / emptiness. Okay. So basically, after that narcissist discarded me, I started feeling intense feelings of worthlessness and shame about who I am as a person. I feel like I had always had problems with my self-esteem. Like I feel like I always had, like, you know, my self-esteem would fluctuate. Like sometimes I would have really low self-esteem and sometimes I would have a really high self-esteem. And I can say that when I met that narcissist, I had a fairly high self-esteem. I wouldn't say it was the highest, but it was like a fairly normal, stable self-esteem. Like I was able to see, you know, good aspects of myself. Like if you were to ask me to write a list of the things that are good about me, I was able to do that. But after the discard, if you were to have asked me like, hey, write down a list of things that you like about yourself, I would not have been able to name not one thing. That discard pretty much stripped me of any sense of self-worth that I had. It made me feel so low as a human being. It made me just feel like this overwhelming sense of worthlessness and shame. That's the only way I can describe it, to the point where, you know, when I got into this new relationship in 2017, I literally didn't know or understand why he even wanted to be with me. Like I just didn't get it. And I think that plays a role in why I was so emotionally unstable and so fearful and things like that, because of that intense feelings of worthlessness, where I just felt like this person could leave me anytime, because one day they're going to wake up and they're going to be able to see the worthlessness that lives inside of me. They're going to be able to see all the things that are wrong with me. And I never had that problem. I never had that problem before the narcissist. Like I said, I was always someone who maybe had like an unstable sense of self-esteem, meaning like sometimes it was higher than others, but for the most part, I could see the good in myself. And also I thought I was a catch before this narcissist. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant or vain, but I remember I was able to say, like, I know that you know, whoever I'm with romantically, I know that I am adding value to their life. I know that I'm a valuable person. Like I'm able to see the value that I bring someone when I'm connected to them. But after the narcissist, it made me feel like I had nothing to offer anyone. It's just really crazy what like narcissistic abuse and like a discard can do to your brain. And this was so deeply rooted. Like, yes, in past relationships, when they would end, or if I was in a toxic relationship and I was treated badly, like, yes, my self-esteem would take a plunge just like anybody else's, but I was able to still recover. You know, like when you go through a bad breakup, your self-esteem does take a hit, but you're able to recover from it and, you know, stabilize yourself again. After this narcissist and this discard, it's like my self-esteem plunged so far down. It was like in a dark, it put me in like a very dark headspace, to the point where I could not climb out of it, or I could not rebuild that self-esteem. And I'm still trying to rebuild it. And it's difficult because I'm trying to rebuild it in a way that's genuine. I don't want to like rebuild it based off of external things. Like I can look at like my subscriber count or my followers on social media and say, okay, yeah, look at me, I'm great because I have this. But I know that that wouldn't be like a stable sense of self-esteem nor a healthy sense of self-esteem. And that's dangerous, I feel. If this narcissist came and like obliterated all of my sense of self-worth, and then I started finding self-worth in outside things, what would happen if those outside things were to disappear one day? Then I would have to go right back to that empty feeling of worthlessness that was there. And I feel like that's what a lot of people do. Sorry, I'm going on like a side rant. I feel like that's what a lot of people do when they do feel intense feelings of shame or worthlessness. They will find things outside of themselves to make them feel whole. And I just feel like that can be very dangerous for me personally. I just feel like it's very dangerous for myself because I can only imagine the type of dark hole I would plummet into if I started using external things to rebuild my self-esteem. So I'm trying to rebuild it in, healthy ways. I'm trying to, reconnect with God. I'm trying to, heal those internal wounds. I'm trying to just build my self-esteem to the point where I feel worthy and I feel valuable just for existing and not for external things, And so I guess, maybe you could see that as like something that's positive that came out of this is that I, am now detached from the idea of connecting my self-worth to things outside of myself, because I just see how dangerous that can actually be. And so hopefully, I'll be able to build genuine self-esteem from within that I feel like I never, really truly had. So, we can see the good and the bad in that point. And I also mentioned the feelings of emptiness, which goes along with feelings of worthlessness. If you have feelings of worthlessness or shame, yeah, you're going to feel feelings of emptiness. But also, because of my inability to truly deeply connect with people, I feel like that's what's also causing these feelings of emptiness as well. And I'm trying to fill that emptiness up with God and with positive things. I'm trying not to fill them up with anything that's negative. I want to heal in a way that I feel like is positive and healthy. I'm not trying to put a band-aid over my wounds. I'm trying to heal them at the root. So yeah. Number 6, identifying more abusers. So let me quickly explain this. Basically, after I got discarded by this narcissist, I started doing research about what narcissistic abuse is. Well, actually, I just did research on how he made me feel and how he acted, because I just didn't understand like what the hell was going on. So when I did research and I found out about narcissistic abuse, it all clicked, it all made sense. But then you also have to then look at other people in your life who may have been narcissistic. Even if they haven't been full-blown narcissists, maybe they've just been highly narcissistic and they've been mistreating you and you didn't even know it. And I think that a lot of people can relate to this, because I actually saw somebody tweet about this. They were like, yeah, the other side of therapy is you realizing that so many people have been abusing you and mistreating you without you even knowing it, because you always thought that it was either normal or you thought that it was your fault in some way. And so reading about narcissists and narcissistic abuse, it really helps you to see how abnormal a lot of things actually are. And it really helps you to see that you may have been mistreated for a very long time by people who claim to love you, and you may have thought it was normal and you may have blamed yourself. And that in itself is like a huge blow, because it changes your whole perspective on you. You have to like look at your whole life differently, pretty much. Like there's people who were close to you that you loved, or that claim to have loved you, and you have to then look at them kind of like differently and say like, wait a minute, our connection is dysfunctional, whether it be like family members or maybe it's like friends or things of that sort. It's like you have to even look at them in a way where you're just kind of like, wow, so you've been kind of mistreating me in this way too, and that I never realized. And so identifying other abusers, even if, I don't know if I should use the word abusers, identifying other people who may have mistreated you or abused you without, even if they don't even fully know or they're not fully aware that they've been mistreating you, you've now become aware of it. So your dynamic with them, has to kind of change. And there's this grieving process that you go through when you identify other people in your life who are narcissistic and who have been hurting you. And you know, and as you learn to develop more like boundaries, because that's one thing that I definitely started reading up on when I discovered narcissistic abuse, is how to set healthier boundaries. Because one of the first things that you learn is that, you know, a lack of boundaries with the narcissist is why you were able to attach to them so tightly, or why they were able to attach to you so tightly, is because of because of the lack of boundaries. And so when you're reading about how to fix your lack of boundaries, and you know, you start setting boundaries with everyone in your life, you start to see just how dysfunctional your other connections in your life may actually be. Because when you start to set those boundaries, that's when you really start to see everyone's true colors. So or not the true, well, I shouldn't say true colors, that sounds kind of judgmental. You start to see everyone's way of thinking and the dysfunctional way of relating to each other. So yeah, yeah, that's another way that definitely my life changed. And the last one that I would say is that my love language changed. And this one might not sound too extreme, but it's extreme to me, or it's very hurtful to me, because my love language used to be words of affirmation, and now I cannot receive love in that way like I used to be able to. Because when you are going through a love bombing stage of narcissistic abuse, basically they are showering you with positive affirmations non-stop. And so after they discard you, your brain now associates positive affirmations or love affirmations with abandonment and discard. And so whenever someone is giving me like a lot of compliments, I kind of like shut it out in my head. Like my brain won't allow me to feel it. Like I feel it in my head, like I hear it, it hits my head, but it doesn't hit my heart, if that makes sense. And that's very unfortunate, because like I said, that was my love language for the longest time. You know, whenever I would be connected to someone, if they would, you know, speak life over me and say good things to me, it would genuinely make me feel good. And now I don't feel anything when they try to compliment me, when they try to just, you know, just praise me in any way. I like reject it. And it's not just romantic, it's anyone. Even on YouTube, too many people praising me in the comment sections, sometimes it gives me anxiety, because it reminds me of the love bombing phase. I'm not saying any of you are love bombing me, of course. That's just how messed up like my brain became because of the discard. It's like any type of praise or any type of compliments, I just get like this fear almost of what's going to happen next. Like, am I going to be discarded by these people next? Like, is this person going to abandon me next? Because my brain associates that praise and those compliments with there's going to be an inevitable discard that comes with it. You see what I'm saying? And so that just really hurts, because like I said, this was a part of my love language, and I miss it. I miss experiencing connecting with someone in a way where their words actually affects me in a positive way. And yeah, it's just very unfortunate. It's just very unfortunate. So that's it. Those are the key points for how life changed after narcissistic abuse. What I will say is that my life changed for the better, in the sense that it definitely made me a more compassionate person. Like, now that I'm in the right state of mind and I can reflect on everything, I definitely feel like my experiences have made me more compassionate. Now, the person I dated in 2017 might not agree with that, because obviously I was not in the right state of mind, and I was lashing out, and I wasn't very compassionate towards him because I wasn't in the right state of mind. So I feel a lot of remorse for that. But I would say that after I came out of that, and after I went and got the professional help, and I actually became aware of what I had done, it definitely, you know, humbled me as a person, and it really caused me to be more compassionate towards people more than I used to be. And it also caused me to be more compassionate with myself. I think that overall, the self-compassion that I'm learning through this process is you know, the most important aspect of it, because I am learning how to be more gentle with myself, and I am learning how to, you know, love myself unconditionally in a way that, you know, in a way that I maybe wouldn't have been required to do if not for this narcissist and this discard. So I would say that the compassion for self and the compassion for other people has definitely been a plus, or like a positive. And overall, I just feel like there was just a lot of dysfunction that has gone on in my life, like in my family, like, you know, like those generational curses, like I feel like a lot of us are here to break those. And I feel like this narcissist discarding me was my first step towards doing the healing work to break the generational curses once and for all. So, you know, I'll always be thankful for that, and I'll always be thankful for my YouTube family, my YouTube channel that I built based off of that experience. So I'm never thankful to him for what he did to me, but I'm thankful to God and to myself for helping me to persevere through, and I'm thankful to you all, of course, my YouTube subscribers, my viewers, my family. I'm thankful to all of you as well, for being on this journey with me, and for, you know, being in my comment section uplifting me, and even those of you who reach out and email me like whenever I disappear off YouTube, those of you who support me on Patreon, who will continue to support me in the future. I appreciate all of you, so I'm thankful to you guys. Yeah, so that's it, guys. So again, like I mentioned, I will do a separate post on Patreon about each of the points that I mentioned, and I'll go more in depth, and they'll be posted over the course of 7 days. I'll try to do like one each day because there's 7 points here. So yeah, if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, the link to that will be in the description box. I have quite a few audios on there. They're not videos, they're like audios that you can listen to. So I have quite a bit of content on there that you could binge watch or binge listen to if you have not subscribed yet. I have a self-love series that's on there, and just overall we just have discussions, you know, just about our healing journeys and our healing process and things of that sort. I'm looking forward to being more consistent on this channel. I really appreciate you guys for watching. I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you guys over in my next video. Bye.